All right, we should be live here. I'm finalizing some stuff on my end, but I figured I'd just go live at this point. Make sure all that's on. I'm letting my projections run really fast to go ahead and get a look at what my stuff likes. Obviously, I'm not at my place today. Let me finish uploading this type of stuff. Congratulations to Miami, a guy that you typically see in the chat. He took down another contest yesterday. Sorry, let me just get this finished here. And I'll show you, and then we'll go over the recent form. One thing I want to say really fast today is I don't really think projections matter that much. And what I mean by that is, I think any projection you give for Elliott is going to be wrong. Whether you don't believe he's going to win or not win, whether you don't believe he's going to lead laps, I think that's a pretty inaccurate thing to expect. And if you expect him to, kind of run away with like the first two stages, that's also probably inaccurate. We're probably looking at a sense of him probably scoring mid-50s in most situations, but that seems to be how I think a lot of these drivers are going to end up scoring today. Like you have, Blaney and Larson in the back of the field who have arguably been the two best. At least Blaney, you could pin Blaney as like fourth place on any of these. Sorry, let me make sure this uploads here. Okay, yeah, cool. We're all good to go. Okay, yeah. So the projections are live on SaberSim. That's good. What's going on here? Ooh, who's messaging me right now? I'm still waiting for my stuff to run here so I can have a better idea of where I'm going, and then we can. Yeah, screw. We're just gonna show what we're looking at here. All right, give me a second. Give me one moment here. Apologize for the entire screen being shared, but that's how we rock and roll on a laptop here. So when we are also shout out to Top Esports for fucking passing all of the actual good stacks that are actually worth the shit today. When we look at the recent form for everybody now, the last real racetrack we went to was Michigan, and usually I do include that, but I'm not. I'm not crazy about using that data for. Let me get the chat up here. Make sure. I'm not super crazy about. Oh yeah, shout out Miami. He's in the chat right now. I'm not super crazy about using Michigan for this one. If you noticed, typically, I mean, it's been like a month and a half since we looked at one of these, and I went ahead and removed, Kansas race from last year and other stuff as we're slowly migrating through. And most likely after Dover, I'll probably end up removing both Las Vegas and Homestead from last year. So it's just our stuff here. But when we start looking at where people lie, obviously we didn't have practice and stuff, and we're having this run order be made off of bit of the last race, which has just been road course, and then the driver stands and stuff. So today is a day I really don't want to be playing a lot of lineups. Like I'm really not interested in this Dover race from a DFS perspective, really as much as yesterday. Like yesterday was the day to just play a shitload. Like I said, any projection for guys up front are pretty much going to be wrong because, I mean, even with Bell being up here, we really don't have a standout guy who has been expected to, run away with this race or who has been up front. These races a lot. We're looking at where Elliott's at. We're looking at where Briscoe's at. Like really none of these guys are like really holding on to, dominant cars. Like everybody up here is pretty even, okay? And when you look at what Dover offers from a racetrack, the leader has a has a huge advantage. Okay, once whoever is leading, which is usually the guy who's controlling the restart, once he clears out from second place, it's very, very difficult for him to get past under green. Okay, usually when we're at Dover, we have people starting at least where they should be. Everybody have a decent idea of where they're at. But the fact that we have so many people in this race that are just clogging up the grid, like SVG, McDowell, you have Priest and Chris Buescher, and even Keselowski, who, in all of the intermediate tracks that we've been at this year, typically started, either like 19th or in the 20s. Priest, Buescher, and Keselowski are all pretty much where they should be. I mean, you look at, the upside that we've had from Ryan Priest. I mean, he's right where he should be. So there's like very little movement in what he can do. Same thing with, Chris Buescher. Very, very similar to where we're at. Hamlin, the guy who is probably favored to win this race, starting 13th. I'm not saying he can't drive through the field, but with this car, it's very, very difficult to get through what is essentially a one lane racetrack. Now, obviously, drivers are running, the bottom and top, but we all converge on the exits, and then we just run the ball down the straightaway. So it's essentially a one groove racetrack. So passing is going to be very, very difficult unless you're extremely, extremely faster than the field. And even then, I think this car limits exactly what you can do on such a tight racetrack. I mean, you have Kyle Larson starting in the back of the field and outside of his wrecks at Darlington and Charlotte. I mean, he's been the best guy, but he's starting 25th. Now, we have seen this we saw this in the Gen 6, where he was coming from the back of the field and Chastain wrecked him into Brennan Poole, I believe. But I'm not super, super crazy really about anybody in this race from a recent form perspective. I think that's very, very difficult to actually look at. And so while it's on your screen, I don't really know if we want to live and die by that. Just on how the grid is starting here. Now, the second point before I get to how I've kind of projected these guys, Charlotte and Dover correlate extremely, extremely well. Typically, if you run well, because typically, we run Dover in April. If you run well at Dover, you usually have a very similar performance at Charlotte. Now, as stated, I mean, we ran Charlotte back in May. I typically don't like having things correlate that far apart, because there's most likely been at least attempted changes made between these teams and what cars are in and stuff. But you look at where people ran at William Byron or at Coca-Cola, at Charlotte rather. And obviously, this is not the finishing order. This is just how I sort people based on their green flag speed. Byron starting 5th today. We have Hamlin starting. He's in 13th. So your two best drivers at Charlotte are most likely not going to get the lead until at least stage 2, unless Byron can just drive through the field and stuff like that. So we lose the potential correlation there. We look at where Chastain is. Chastain is also in 19th. Okay, so at this point, I mean, Bell was 5th and he's starting 3rd. I mean, so for the most part, you lose your top 3 guys from Charlotte in this race. You then go to Bell and Elliott, and then Briscoe. Who are the next guys here, right? I think that's pretty much the closest thing we can kind of lean on the expectations of what's going to happen in this race. Typically, intermediates that get run out, it's not nearly as problematic that we don't have qualifying, but just with how difficult Dover is, really, really sucks. Okay, so those are like my thoughts on using our recent form. I mean, this is a very, very difficult situation. So what am I doing past that from a projection standpoint? Who do I think is going to lead in this race here? My favorites, or at least not favorites to like win or whatever, but in terms of building, right? I don't know if paying for Larson is super worth it at 11.5. I'd rather play Blaney. I don't think either of them are going to necessarily compete for the win. I mean, maybe super late. I mean, it is a 3-hour race at 400 laps. But man, you click off fast laps so fast here, and laps led here. I'd rather chase potential lap leaders in this race. And so, who do I think falls in line to lead laps here? Obviously, Chase Elliott. I think Briscoe, Bell, and Byron are probably my favorites to lead laps here. Now, what does that look like? As I said, I think any projection you give for Elliott is going to be wrong. So maybe this is a race to where a mean projection is probably a better situation here, but still, like I haven't looked at SaberSim yet, what they have or what my stuff says, but I'd imagine a mean projection for Elliott across the board would look anywhere from like 38 to 39 points. I have him for like 52 because I think Elliott, unless we have an early yellow and stuff, I think Elliott has a very likelihood of controlling the field. I think he's better than Briscoe. I mean, when we're splitting hairs and looking at these guys here, let me put Elliott here. This is where Elliott stands. Yet again, we're looking at Charlotte with a bit of a lens here, and then Briscoe's slightly under him and stuff at Charlotte. I like Elliott to lead probably realistically anywhere from like 32 to 87 laps today. Probably in the range of 7 to 18% of the green flag laps in this race. Yet again, we're doing like 400 laps. 100 is 25%. So I think that I think that range is pretty realistic. I like Bell to actually compete for the win today. Through pit cycling or making adjustments. He's probably the best car, and I think he's slightly ahead. I mean, we can take a gander really fast at Bell compared to Byron. I mean, I would argue that that's pretty similar. Obviously, Byron had the better car at Charlotte. I don't really give a shit that Charlotte isn't a concrete track. I know I probably have new people watching me. This is just what I've done for years. Dover and Charlotte correlate very, very well. So because of that, Elliott, Bell, and Byron, I want to try and get 2 of these guys, and it's most likely Elliott with one of Bell and Byron in most of my lineups. That's like the first way I'm going to attack this slate. I'm probably going to be very heavy on that core of 2 drivers, and I'm sure there's situations where you could probably run 3, but it's very difficult with them all being 10K guys. You'd have to end up punting a lot. If you believe like a lot of the 5K range can maintain the running position, I guess you could do that. But those are the 3 that I like the most. I think you have to play the pole sitter here, especially when it's Elliott, who's actually been a top 6 car in these races and stuff. I have no clue what ownership's going to look like. I have no clue what any of that is going to be. I haven't really looked at stuff in that sense, just because this is going to be a very, very difficult race to project for. I mean, you have Hamlin who is arguably going to be significantly faster than a majority of the people here, but how long does it take for Hamlin to get up through the field? I don't know if we see Hamlin in the top 3 till the end of stage 2 or whatever. And obviously, if we have green flag pit stops, I mean, we have to have Hamlin fucking survive that without speeding up pit lane and stuff. But yeah, I am just not too crazy about this. Like, the more I talk about it, the more I wasn't going to show it, but at this point, I am very curious on what my first run is ending up looking like here. Let's look at the top 1,000 on top of on my stuff in terms of projections here. I kind of want to see where my stuff is falling in line at really fast. Obviously, we haven't ran anything yet here. So, my highest on all my raw stuff right now is Blaney, Bell, Elliott, Ty Gibbs, Eric Jones, and Gilliland. My biggest concern would be, with Jones and Gilliland, I'd be open to just seeing what else I can do on a 2v2 situation there. But these are builds that I'm probably going to end up going with. I mean, Gibbs at $7,400. He seems like a really, really decent play, especially with the speed that we've seen out of him so far. What is my exposure rate? So it's Elliott, Bell, Byron significantly lower between those guys, but I mean, Elliott and Bell seem to be popping off. Interesting that Sabersim has him projected for 55. Like that's pretty. We're actually very, very close. That's kind of scary. I don't really like being that close to a mean projection. Interesting. What else? Do I see anything else crazy? Are there any bad plays that are popping up at my highest exposure rates? That's typically the last point that I want to focus on. I don't really see anybody that is alarming here. Potentially Gillen at 24th, but he's in the 5K range, and you have him and Dylan both 24th and 23rd. So we're kind of stuck playing shitty 5K guys today. I'd probably try and prefer Gregson if I can get to him, but I have a feeling that the reason why I have slightly more the reason I have slightly more Gillen and Dylan is because pricing's probably gonna be pretty tight today. But I mean, this is my exposure ratings between my top 1,000 projection lines. And I don't really see a reason why I wouldn't be, building like that. It just sucks that Dover was the one that got rained out because I really, really like this race. I also didn't get to watch literally anything of the fucking Dover race yesterday. I literally, so I'm assuming I was correct on everything. I haven't seen anything at all. But so that's frustrating. I'm gonna just have a shitty Dover experience this year. That blows from a viewer perspective. I mean that's really it. I mean this grid is so fucking annoying. I mean we can go through really fast. We kind of go back to the people I haven't looked at yet. So like here's Barry. Typically, obviously, he's had 2 runs. Vegas to start the year, and then Kansas where he was the 7th best car. But outside of that, he's been 18th and 19th and stuff. Look at Brad here. I mean, Brad's literally right where he should be at. Alex Bowman, typically we love Alex Bowman starting in this range because, he has, top 5 realistic upside and stuff. But at Dover, it's going to be so, you have to prioritize laps led here. Like, we can't be giving up a ton of a ton of upside for, a value of a 5.0 return and stuff, which Bowman can realistically hit. Here, lastly, we look at the dashboard, which you can always have access to if you join us on any description below. If you want a 3-day trial for SaberSim, it is still $16. If you want to try that. But I want to see the last thing I haven't looked at is the thresholds for scoring, which again, I mean, this laptop is quite slow, and I have very intensive. I mean, I've restreamed 2 Google Sheets and a live YouTube thing on it over here, so it's very, very slow. But we look at the last scoring ranges here, and I'm going to assume we're going to at least need we might need more than what I thought. We're going to need high 50s, right? All right, so 5th is 57, 54 for 6, 48 for 7, and 45 for 8. So, we need at least, can you realistically score 48 points today? Like, those are the drivers that we have to look at. I don't want to. I mean, all the projections have already been seen anyway on SaberSim. So, what is Bowman? What do I have Bowman at? Bowman's at 42. I mean, I guess he could get slightly higher than that, but I really don't want to sacrifice, laps led to get an $8,800 guy in there who could probably realistically hit 45. And I understand that's the threshold, but I'd rather just get multiple lap leaders in it than spending AK for a place differential play, for what's essentially a place differential play. When we look at where he's been at, he's not. Yes, he's been fast, but he's outside of Homestead. Where he did get past by Reddick in that one, but this is just not speed that we're really excited to see any wrecked out in Nashville, which that's not drastically important, but just not crazy about Bowman. Age Allmendinger from a $6,600 like. Besides Charlotte, he hasn't done anything. Like, are we gonna play Mr. I don't have a job anymore? Suarez 18th? Like, no. Like Chastain at 95. You had to get in a very similar situation to Bowman. I just don't really want to be playing somebody who I'm just essentially playing for place differential. So for me today in my lineups, which I'm not playing a lot. I mean, yesterday, I had like 300 in just my lineups, and then as stated, I'm gonna. Although I really don't want to do a mini max today, I just don't think this is data worth actually looking at. But I did do the mini max yesterday, and for the first time in NASCAR with just my stuff, just see I ran. I had like 78 to 150 cash, but like I'm just not interested in this at all, especially after like getting fucking screwed. I don't know. I'm super tilted off of yesterday. Like I'm so tired of losing like $8,000 at the end of these fucking slates, man. Like if that rain happens like 10 laps before, I win like 8,000. Like that's just par for the course for me this year. That's mainly it. I mean, I think this is I think the two directions of this slate. I'm not trying to just keep walking in circles, but you either embrace the people starting up front, okay, which is the direction that I want to go, or you fully just chase one lap leader, which I don't like doing, and then you jam in, like Larson and Blaney, since on paper they have a much higher floor than all these other guys. Like all these other guys are going to have to lead laps here, whereas you can pencil down Larson and Blaney for whatever the fuck I have them at. 56 and 52. But I just want the upside for potential lap leaders. So I'll look at what you guys are saying here, but I mean this is just the Dover race. Max exposures for today, Miami. It's the same as yesterday. Like I wouldn't go over like 55 on any specific person. Here. Lastly, let's go. We'll look at the distribution of the nominators from these previous races here at Dover. And you're going to see just the situation that we're kind of stuck in, right? And I mean, we can even go back and look at the scoring for last year's race really fast. So we look at Dover, right? I mean, all these this is just Dover, right? And we look at the amount of laps led in these races. Actually, we're going to sort by year, so we can go through each race here, right? Someone like. 100, and yet again, we're going back from 2022 to last year, and it's just the distribution. I don't even give a shit who the guy is. We're just looking at the laps led given out in these races. 103, 86, 73, 67, and then a couple guys in the 20s and stuff. But you have four guys who are over 50 laps led, and typically they're probably going to get around 30 fast laps and stuff. Look at 2023. 193, 98, 68. I mean, I wouldn't be chasing those guys. We look at last year's race. 136, 69, 47, 39, 36, 36, and 34 and stuff. So then, we then correlate that, or we then look at where these guys are starting. So what are the pole sitters doing? Now, yet again, this has been with qualifying and stuff. So typically, you're going to have very dominant guys starting up front. Guys expected to lead laps here, or correlated with where they're running in the series, or in recent form and stuff. So entering Dover, we going back years, we were expecting Larson, Denny Hamlin, people like that leading. Okay, they're not getting the pole. We typically see these guys starting third to fourth or whatever, right? So your pole sitter early in that race is being ran down by a guy who's substantially faster. And who's expected to do stuff, i.e., Denny Hamlin, whatever, right? But even still, like, you got to just by default give the lap leader like the pole sitter like 30 laps led, right? And if he's able to run away, from his guys. Obviously, he can do more. But since we don't have, I mean, you could argue Bell. And this is not just for Elliott. This is for Briscoe too. Say Briscoe gets the lead early, he's in the same boat as Elliott. He has Bell behind him, he has Byron behind him. And just how long do those guys take to potentially catch up and pass him and stuff? Then obviously late in the race you're gonna have Larson back up there and stuff. But once you already have guys who have already ran down or led a substantial amount of laps led and stuff, like you're at such a huge place differential is not going to overcome that. I guess lastly, we will look at the score. I hit the wrong thing. Whoops. This is it just sucks. This is such a lame, just such a lame slate. Anything else being said here? I don't think I see anything here. I mean, I did see, like quadruple bazillion dollar, X say, no Denny in there. I don't like, or do I not like Denny today? That's just what my projections by raw stuff is showing. I just like to see where that is. I'm going to be playing. I'll have a lineup with Denny Hamlin today. I mean, I'm probably only going to play realistically, I'm probably going to do like 5 lines today. And then just, enter those and everything like I normally do. So each line is probably going to have like $50 worth of entry fees in it or whatever. I'll probably have Hamlin in one of those just because if he didn't show up on my stuff, and I don't think projections matter that much in this for this race, I'll probably end up just having a Hamlin line here. So let's look back at, obviously we haven't ran this year yet. So let's look back at the last 2 just to see the scoring here. And yet again, anybody can do this, and Astukas is working on just having a pretty easy database, so we don't have to waste time with racing reference and stuff like that. We can just go here and do everything within here. I want to go ahead and look at the race results and the DraftKings points that we're fucking around with here. So obviously, your higher lap leaders, their projection is worthless, right? There's no point in projecting somebody for like 98 points or whatever, right? They're just there. So it's your 3 lap leaders or whatever. And then, so what is this guy doing? Going from 25th to 5th, 13 fast laps, 68. So which I would argue is probably a realistic case to be made for what Larson can potentially do today. Your early lap leader at 58, yet again, another lap leader at 53. So we're noticing that literally everybody in the top, 6 scoring here has either had fast laps and, I mean, not even just fast laps outside of Elliott. Like they're pretty much having fast laps and laps led. Okay. Obviously you get values and stuff to come through, but that was last year's race. Look at 2023. And we look at where people are scoring here. So in order to be, we can look through here. Your top 5 DraftKings scorers, all of those drivers, I guess I spoke wrong. We do have a place differential with Blaney here. Actually, no, just fast laps here. With an average rank position of 3rd. So I would argue a guy contending for the lead. He just never got the lead in the situation here. Like your top 5 guys, they're all touching the lead at some point or like sniffing the lead at some point, right? So at the end of the slate, yet again, I don't want to be wasting place differential points. I want to try and nail all the guys who are going to be potentially fighting for laps led in this race. So what does that mean? Guys who are going to be running at least the top 6, right? Yet again, how do we do that? We do that with, focusing on Elliott, Briscoe, Bell. Now I haven't mentioned Reddick yet. Reddick is a guy that I'm probably not going to play. He's not showing up in my stuff in any substantial form. I know I didn't project him for really anything. Whatever. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Whatever. But I typically want at least 3 of Elliott, Briscoe, Bell, Byron. In most of my lines if I can help it, and certainly by default I want 2 of those guys in my lineups today. But yeah, kind of an unfun slate. A lot of a lot of gobbledygook here. Like SVG is just wasting space in the top 15. What a mess, dude. What a mess. Let's see. I don't see anything else that is really worth saying here. Obviously, like I said, yesterday was the slate to play. If you want to play a lot, if you want to do anything, a lot of TrueDFS guys did extremely well yesterday. Yeah, I mean that's mainly it. I don't really have anything else to bring up or talk about and stuff like that. So yeah, let me get rid of this thing. So and I will I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for being here. Bye bye.